I've said many times over the past decade plus, security details and even predatory animals avoid conflict at all costs. Freedom types do very much the opposite. Real heroes survive and help others survive, not the ones who run headfirst into their demise. This is the problem when inspiration comes from Hollywood movies or psyops individuals, rather than reality and real heroes. The ones who survive are the ones who remain to tell their story of true heroism and making a difference, helping others. It all depends on what you want. You want a moment of delusion along your back, forgotten? Or do you want to continue on in life, remembered? Hello, it's March 2025, and yes, I'm doing another video after I said I'm not doing any more videos. And really, it's inspired by more and more conversations I'm having with people, and I thank people for having discussions and asking questions. But again, it just seems like I'm repeating myself, which kind of like, I feel like a broken record. But as I think about it, I'm sure a lot of people have questions and so forth, so I'm making another video. And it does tie into psyops, because there's multiple psyops going on at any given time. Now, before I really get into the meat and potatoes of this video, I'm going to start off by saying that in 2020, 2021, and 2022, I did state when everything that was being imposed would end, and it did. It's not that I had a crystal ball or anything. It's something much more simpler than that. Now, when people started to realize that even with them trying to sue businesses for not allowing them entry and everything else, and trying to sue governments, and I told them how it would end for them, not in their favor, in fact costing them, people started to pay attention. And one of the questions people had asked, okay, so then what happens after this? And what I told them was a Great Depression. People would ask, okay, well then what happens after that? World War. And after that, prosperity. Okay, that's a good thing, right? Then what happens after that? Well, we start to go on the decline again. And where we are now, we are in what's called a silent depression. Let's put this in perspective here. So when you account for inflation, for example, the people in the 30s, the Great Depression, were making I think it was about $76,000 per household. Now keep in mind, that's with one person working. Today, the average household with two people working making roughly around $56,000. Keep in mind, there's the food costs and costs of everything across the board has risen. And I'm going to segue for a moment by saying, and the quality of everything and the quantity of everything has gone down. We can all observe this, and people are really complaining and desperate about all these things. But we are in a silent depression right now. Now, I'm I'm just going to segue again for a moment. We see things leading up to, for example, another world war. Who the players are and who's going to be against each other as a descriptive, well, time will tell. But we see that starting to build its foundation. So again, everything that I've stated seems to be coming true. Now, there are some people who have hope that this civilization will be salvaged and everything will be happy and whatever. But I've said for many, many years, what people are afraid of is the time before a new equilibrium is established. And this is where people have to endure. You have to endure that time. Because when it's all over, I'll say whoever's left gets to rebuild. But this is really not the focus here of this video, because what I want to talk about kind of comes from, for example, people today in this silent depression complaining about high taxes and all this other stuff, and even inflation, which I just mentioned. People complain about these things, but they seem to be oblivious to all the other scams that are going on. And there's countless of scams. Just to name a few off the top of my head, for example, we have things that need to be stopped. Let's stop human trafficking. Let's stop organ trafficking. Let's stop crime prevention myths. All these different scams going on. We have social justice scams, like with this BLM, and people wanting to stop things that are being imposed, scams with protests of rubber and even defending guilty people. I've talked about this recently as well. So we have a lot of scams going on because people are buying into it. And this is my point here, is people buying into these scams. Paying, donating money to causes and individuals who don't deserve it. Now, somebody might say, well, but there are these government programs and the government's going to say, well, government's not going to save anything. How many times have people noticed how when a government agency, a governing body, for example, they get involved in something and everything becomes so complicated and so expensive? Where's all this money going? Whether it be to these causes of stop human trafficking, sex trafficking, whatever, and everything else. Where's all these tens of millions of dollars going to? We see, for example, how with some non-government organizations, supposedly non-profit, have been exposed to be, dare I say, scams. Yet people pay, donate to these things as well. Homelessness scam. We gotta stop homelessness, raising hundreds of millions of dollars, even $2.6 billion in some big areas, and yet there's still that problem, because all these things that need to be stopped are actually creating revenue and jobs. That's why these things never stop. We see, for example, insurance scams, medical insurance scams, big topic right now. Everyone's just kind of jumped on the bandwagon with that. There's no money in actually curing people or helping people. There's money to be made. And you can even contrast that with, for example, when you look at credit grantors. People think, well, I pay my credit card bill or whatever on time. I'm a good customer to the bank, and then the bank says, hey, you're a really good customer. We're going to increase how much you can borrow. Ever wonder why? Because where real money's made is on default, whether it be on a credit card or a mortgage or a loan, line of credit, whatever. Default is where the money's made. And where you see the similarity, for example, is people's health. When people's health is poor, big money to be made. When people are healthy, there's no real money to be made, we'll call it. But people are all donating to all these scams while we're in a silent depression. Now, when you look at, for example, I highlighted in Alberta how there was a female politician who helped raise $20 million or something. I forget the whole details. Not really matters. But people are talking about, oh, you know, government this, government that. Or whether even be a private organization, nonprofit, so-called nonprofit. And I just want to highlight something here. People on the bottom of the pyramid of nonprofit, yeah, they're not making money. Some of them are barely making ends meet, but hey, they feel good because they think they're actually doing something. But I digress. You have to look up the pyramid to see who's actually making the money. But anyway. But here's the thing. So we've had all these problems with human trafficking and whatever else, homelessness and food. I've talked about food donations being a scam, like with food banks, and how every day there's multiple truckloads from one location. There's many locations taking garbage or food to the dump as garbage, only because a skid has been damaged or a box, but the food is just perfectly fine. There's no food shortage. But the question that needs to be asked, these problems have always been around, and throughout history that been made known to us, never been successful. So when somebody comes up saying, hey, we have a new plan, or we're going to stop this or stop that, or we're going to protest something, what are people today going to do differently that hasn't been done in the past that will at least have a chance of success? Because if everything has been tried throughout known history, something different needs to be done. It goes back to that old saying about keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. I probably bastardized that, but you get what I'm saying. So if people want to stop sex trafficking, what's going to be done differently? Sure, you can have these so-called halfway homes helping a handful of individuals, men and women, not being trafficked or whatever. That doesn't even put a dent in the problem. But it makes people feel good. And it gives the appearance of doing something. As long as the bare minimum is done, which costs next to nothing. For example, giving homeless people a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and saying, yeah, we fed them. Where's the rest of that money going to? What's going to be done that's different that may actually have a chance to work? So before anyone starts throwing their personal money during this silent depression to help a cause, which really just to make everyone feel good, people need to ask, where's that money going? Okay, that's accountability. And what is going to be done differently that hasn't been tried before? Anyway, I just want to really go over some of these topics real quick. Give you something to think about as usual. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people saying to me, oh, when is it going to get easier? When you die.